Good evening and happy Tuesday, Chicago, or as happy as it can be, given news that we've been following this past weekend. I want to welcome you to Chicago Corner as I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Kit Cabello, returning from his vacation.
It feels good to be back. And number two, I also want to give you a shout out for really stepping up and being a guest co-host on Hard Lens Media. I'm more than happy to be a guest co-host here for Chicago Corner. Let's get the show started because there's a lot to talk about. But Jerry, I want to say again, really great job. And it was wonderful seeing you at Talia Hall. Yeah. We had a great time with Jimmy Dore seeing the show. And I actually did an interview with him too, but that will be available a little bit later on the Hard Lens Media YouTube channel. But let's stay focused on Chicago Corner. Let's get the show started. Jerry, take it away, man.
Well, listen, it's always good to have you co-host. I'm happy to help you and Daniel over at Hard Lens Media. Jimmy Dore was great. I'm looking forward to your interview with him. Let's jump into our first story, and this is going to be pretty dense. Yeah. It's a lot to cover here, so I want to bring up, add this to our stream, a salute to our fallen Chicago police officer, French. And I'm going to share what CBS Chicago reported today because they did catch the shooters. Now, this is from CBS Chicago. The two brothers charged in connection with the fatal shooting of Chicago police officer Ella French and critically wounding another officer over the weekend were ordered held without bond today. Emonte Morgan, 21, and Eric Morgan, 22, appeared at separate bond hearings on Tuesday, and both were denied bail. Emonte Morgan, also known as Monte Morgan, is charged with 1 count of first-degree murder of a peace officer, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a peace officer, 1 count of aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon by a felon. His brother Eric Morgan is charged with aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, and obstruction of justice, accused of trying to dispose of a murder weapon before he was detained by a group of civilians not far from the scene of the shooting. At the time of the shooting, Emonte Morgan was on probation after pleading guilty to a 2019 robbery charge. Eric Morgan also was on probation for a theft conviction in Wisconsin, according to prosecutors. At both bond hearings on Tuesday, Cook County prosecutors said French and 2 other officers were on patrol in a marked squad car around 9 p.m. Saturday when they pulled over a gray SUV with expired plates near 63rd and Bell. Now, I want to add to this story from everything that I've read in the news. The police cams confirmed everything as far as the accounting of what went down. And these officers were doing everything we ask and expect officers to do in de-escalating a situation, which is the real tragedy of this, because you had a group of really good officers out there doing their jobs before this tragedy occurred. Prosecutors said Eric Morgan was driving the SUV while Emonte Morgan was in the back seat and a woman was in the front passenger seat. There was open alcohol in the vehicle, and the woman was not wearing a seatbelt. After pulling over the SUV, all 3 officers walked up to the vehicle, and French approached the driver, taking away his car keys. Prosecutors said Eric Morgan admitted to having marijuana in his possession, and French had him get out of the car. Meantime, one of French's partners approached the woman in the front passenger seat, while her other approached Emonte Morgan in the back seat and asked both of them to get out of the vehicle. Emonte Morgan stepped out with a drink in one hand and cell phone in the other. He refused to put them down and jerked his arms away from officers, according to prosecutors. After initially cooperating with French, Eric Morgan ran off, and one of her partners started to chase him while Emonte Morgan began to struggle with French and her other partner, according to prosecutors. Prosecutors said body camera footage showed a semi-automatic handgun in Emonte Morgan's waistband as he struggled with officers outside the SUV. The struggle then moved to the open front passenger door, where French's partner yelled at him to show his hands while he was partially inside the SUV as French tried to assist. While both French and her partner still had their service weapons holstered, Emonte Morgan fired several shots, hitting French and her partner, who both fell to the ground. Their body cameras recorded Emonte Morgan emerging from the SUV with a gun in his left hand, according to prosecutors. He could then be seen stepping over the wounded officers before moving off camera. That had to be chilling to see from that perspective, the police officers' body cams, this guy just walking over them the way he did. Meantime, the third officer who had been chasing Eric Morgan heard the gunshots, and when he didn't hear his partners over the radio, he stopped trying to handcuff Eric Morgan and ran back to the SUV, radioing for help. The third officer spotted Amante Morgan, who fired at him from the back of the SUV. That officer returned fire and fell to the ground, prosecutors said. When he stood back up, he saw Amante and Eric Morgan meet up across the street and run away. The officer fired at Amante Morgan again, shooting him in the abdomen. Prosecutors said Amante Morgan handed the gun to his brother, who ran off before he was detained by witnesses who caught him in a nearby yard where he had dumped the gun. Several officers responded to the scene and put French and her wounded partner into squad cars to bring them to the hospital, prosecutors said. Other officers canvassed the area and found Amante Morgan lying on the ground. His brother was found not far away where civilians had detained him. Police also found a .22 caliber handgun in the backyard where Eric Morgan was detained. French later died of a gunshot wound to the back of the head. Her wounded partner, a 39-year-old male officer, remains in critical condition with a gunshot wound to the eye and a bullet still lodged in his brain, according to prosecutors. Meantime, Amante Morgan remains hospitalized at Advocate Christ Medical Center. His next court hearing is scheduled for August 16th. Another individual, Jamal Donzi, 29, has been charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office with federal firearm violations. He's accused of buying the weapon used in the shooting and then providing the gun Eric Morgan, who Donzi knew was a felon and not allowed to buy a weapon himself. Meanwhile, on Monday night, there was also a huge show of support for fallen Officer French, with dozens of police officers in attendance. Chicago police officer Erica Hernandez, who was a friend of French's and her former partner on the force. She led a balloon release for French along with the CPD's chaplain. She did this job because she wanted to make a difference. She was confident, fearless, a little crazy, but that girl was absolutely courageous, Hernandez told CBS 2's Charlie DeMar. Hernandez was especially pleased with the turnout at the balloon release. There are so many officers from different districts. She said, it's a blessing to see so many people for Ella. Hernandez and French both came into the force within months of one another and shared the unbreakable link of being female police officers. We all have a bond, Hernandez said. We are each other's girls. That's an accounting for what happened from the body cams as reported by CBS Chicago. Now, these details come from the Chicago Tribune. I told you it was going to be a little bit dense before we start talking about this. And I'm paraphrasing from the Chicago Tribune article, which was provided by Megan Crepeau, Jeremy Gorner, and Gregory Platt. So, French, 29, an officer since April of 2018, was the first Chicago cop to be shot and killed in the line of duty since Mayor Lightfoot took office in 2019, and the first since Police Superintendent David Brown began leading the city's police force last year. Her killing rattled a city already struggling with violence this summer. The brothers have little in the way of serious criminal backgrounds, though both were on probation for separate cases at the time of the shooting. Amante Morgan pled guilty to a robbery in Cook County Court last year, and Eric Morgan pleaded guilty to theft in Dane County, Wisconsin, records show. Speaking at a news conference Monday where the charges were announced, Police Superintendent David Brown said the wounded officer is incrementally improving from Saturday night's tragic events. I think that the people of Chicago need to pray, not only for the recovery of our officer who's fighting for his life, but also for other officers on the street doing the job, Brown said, lamenting that he called low support for the police from the public and members of the media who often focus on police reform issues and not acts of heroism. It's past time to stop this, imbalanced treatment of police officers here in Chicago and everywhere in this country, Brown said. We're flawed, just like the media gallery is flawed, just like every profession in our country is flawed. But they go down dark alleys none of you would go down to protect you, he said. The suspect's vehicle was curbed because of expired plates, but investigators haven't yet established a motive for the shooting. Brown also said the woman who was with the Morgan brothers was not charged with anything because there was no evidence against her. Investigators have been using body-worn camera footage to piece together the sequence of events, which we just read to you since the Tribune article preceded what was reported today. Footage shows the three occupants were out or in the process of being taken out of the vehicle when Eric Morgan ran, leading one officer to chase and apprehend him nearby. Brown also provided a brief narrative of the confrontation that led to the shooting at the news conference, also describing a struggle between Amante Morgan and the officers. The struggle went from the trunk of the car to near inside the car, not necessarily all the way inside, he said, and the shots rang out from the passenger seat of the car. Brown's demeanor turned to frustration, however, when asked about the dangers of sending young officers through reverse seniority to high-crime neighborhoods. French was 29 with just 3 years on the job, for instance. These two offenders killed Ella French and then tried to kill the second and third officers there, Brown said sternly. That's the only person we're pointing the finger at today. One person did this, not reverse seniority, not any other reasons for this person. Then this person killed her and tried to kill the other officers. And I won't entertain finger pointing, he continued, at anyone or anything else. Thank you, Kit. We're almost to the end of this. Over the weekend, Brown said a total of 38 Chicago police officers have been shot at or shot so far in 2021, 11 of whom had been struck by gunfire. The 11 includes French and her partner. For all of 2020, 79 Chicago cops were shot at or shot. Now, for, I guess, comparison, the weekend Chicago shooting stats, as reported, I believe, by ABC Chicago, there were 73 shot this weekend, 11 fatally. CPD says more than half during a 10-hour span that saw a police officer killed and 3 mass shootings that wounded 16 people. And I went and looked at where these other shootings took place at, in clubs, on corners. It was just, I don't know if it was the heat or it's out of control with everybody's access to illegal weapons. The mass shootings occurred about an hour apart in Gresham on the south side early Sunday, not long after the 2 Chicago police officers were shot during a traffic stop in West Englewood. The officers were taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center, while the wounded Morgan brother was taken to Advocate Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn. He and one other male suspect were arrested, while a 20-year-old woman was taken into custody hours later, police officials said. French and her partner were members of the Community Safety Team, a citywide unit formed last summer under Brown to respond to criminal hotspots. Prior to Saturday night, the last line of duty deaths of Chicago cops who were killed while pursuing a suspect were in December of 2018, when officers Eduardo Marpline and Conrad Gary were fatally struck by a train as they looked for a man wanted for illegally possessing a gun. That suspect, Edward Brown, was sentenced earlier this year to 1 year in prison for a felony weapon violation in that case. The last female Chicago cop to be shot and killed in the line of duty was Irma Ruiz, who died in September of 1988 when she was shot inside an elementary school on the near west side. In the French shooting, records showed that Danzy bought the gun in March from a licensed dealer in Hammond, brought it across state lines, where he claimed to be buying the weapon for himself, according to the federal complaint filed Monday. ATF agents on Sunday tracked down Danzy at the restaurant where he works, and he agreed to be interviewed on tape in an agent's car in the parking lot. Agents showed him paperwork from the dealer, and at first he claimed to have bought the gun for himself, the complaint states, but after further questioning, he admitted that he instead had bought it for someone in Chicago. Individual A, who had a felony record and could not buy a gun for himself, who we've since identified as the shooter. Also Monday, Lightfoot's office addressed controversy that emerged from her visit to the hospital the officers were taken to Saturday night, where a group of police officers apparently turned their back on her. A source with knowledge of the incident said Lightfoot also was scolded by the father of the officer who was seriously wounded in the shooting. Lightfoot stood and listened in response, according to the source. Afterward, Lightfoot tried to approach a few dozen officers who walked away from her and kept their backs turned, the source said. The mayor then walked away, according to the source. Lightfoot's office released a statement Monday addressing the incident at the hospital by saying she was present at the emergency department to offer support and condolences to the families involved and the hundreds of line officers and exempts who were there, which she did. In a time of tragedy, emotions run high, and that is to be expected, the statement said. The mayor spoke to a range of officers that tragic night and sensed the overwhelming sentiment was about concern for their fallen colleagues. The mayor's office also said it's time for us to come together as a city. Now, where am I over here? These are the 2 shitheads, and I'm not going to leave them up very long, who shot Officer French. And in reviewing social media today, I came across a fantastic quote from David Earl Williams III, who is a frequent contributor to our Facebook Hard Lens Media page, who said, and I quote him, "We know how this ends. They'll be made examples of. Lightfoot will be reelected because blaming her for any cop or civilian's deaths is just misplaced anger. The milking of the deceased officer from the media will wear off about a week from now. That and until some cop abuses their power again, dishonoring the fallen officer's name. It's tragic and much won't change really until the mayor, the cops, and community work together." And I want to add that, these two idiots just gave CPD, no pun intended, the ammunition to avoid responsibility and accountability for any future abuses, because it's going to make it harder now for all the communities with angry cops patrolling the streets. These guys may have just shot people in their own community, because they've just basically made it worse for communities of color when you've got an angry police department and the ripple effect that this is all going to cause. Tragedy all around. Kit, your thoughts?
Well, first,
where to start?
Yeah, where to start and how to really contribute to this story that is something that we're all too familiar here with Chicago. Sadly, and here, hold on, let's actually acknowledge somebody in the live stream. It's a shame. People choose to be soldiers, and some die while serving. Same for police and firefighter. Unfortunately, this is part of those jobs. Sad, all the same. And the thing is, condolences to the families. With all point of evidence, the video camera, the dash cam evidence shows that the cops did their job. That these two officers, one who is still fighting for their life, they did their job and
honorably. They did the job honorably.
The situation. This is a situation where now this can be used as an example of, well, you always have to be on the go, ready to shoot. And how many times have we covered on Hard Lens Media, or how many times have we seen on the Convo Couch, or Me Katsu Kaso, or Fred Hampton Leftist, or Jimmy Dore Show, or Lee Camp, or anywhere else where cops are abusing their power and using excessive force? I don't know what this spells in the long run for the city of Chicago, what this means for Chicago Police Department interactions with people of different communities on the south and west side, or even on the north side. But the sad fact is that this summer heat wave, it's still happening. And right now, while we're still dealing with a thunderstorm.
Yeah, let me bring that up real quickly. Quick news alert.
Hold on. Wait. Let me just finish my thought here real quick. This thunderstorm that's happening outside could be an omen of things to come, because we don't know what's going to happen next. Because there's a lot of angry people out there. There's a lot of scared people out there. Now, does there need to be police reform? Oh, absolutely. Nationwide, we have seen abuse of police officers hurting people, innocent people. We've covered before in the past of a lot of these things before. But these two officers are one of the few examples of doing the right thing and what a lot of the activists have been asking for, de-escalation.
Yep. They
did their job. And these two young men who are now being held without bail, they systematically put everything backwards now. We're right back to square one.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, what's going to matter? It's going to matter with those people who are in power, the politicians, and what corporate media also pulls out there to the people as well. So these next couple of weeks here in Chicago are going to be pretty dicey. So everyone just be careful out there, be safe out there. And we haven't seen the last of this, unfortunately. And I don't know how else we can end this, but just saying, please be safe. And that goes for everyone, officers included, because this is a boiling pot, and there's no way to stop it.
It's interesting also to see how the police department is dealing with Mayor Lightfoot, who I feel plays both sides of the both. I'm getting a little bit of an echo, Kidder. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, you've got Mayor Lightfoot playing both sides of the fence on this. She claims that she wants police reform, but then, she shows up at, to offer support, and the police don't want to have any of that. When it's like you can't have it both ways. I mean, we need a responsible police department, of which these officers were clearly demonstrating in action. this thin blue line's got to go away, and we've all got to be brought together. And that's what I think that David Earl Williams said. Again, quoting him, it's a tragic and much won't change really until the mayor, the cops, and the community work together. Everybody's working against each other right now. You've got the cops working against the community because of shitheads like these two and many more like them that are out there terrorizing not only the community, but the police who are out there who are supposed to be out there to provide protection for people. And then you've got an amped up police department who's just going to point to this and say, see, this is why we have to go into every situation with our hackles up, guns drawn, because we don't know what we're going into. And I think that there's just got to be, like a stand down between the community and between the police and the mayor too. We have to work together on this. I'd like to see I think that I don't know. I mean, in the light of this tragedy, I'm hoping things don't suddenly tilt towards, one step forward, two steps back. As far as
unfortunately, I think we are there.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen now.
And right now, until there's actually real kind of dialogue between the communities, the CPD, the politicians, and how something can really be done so that everyone can at least do their jobs and live life here in the city as best they can. Unfortunately, this situation, it's still too hot. It's still too fresh and raw for many people. And,
so Arturo Medina,
I just don't see how there could be any real positive conclusion to this, because right now we haven't seen the last of it.
Arturo Medina brings up a very good point in the live chat. Channel 2 did a report of many cops retiring early because they don't believe the city has their backs. I think the city would love to have their backs so long as they're held accountable for when they're not doing their jobs properly. And
if you don't mind, let's look at a few examples of where, again, a lot of people in the city have raised their eyebrows and said a little bit more towards the CPD, such as the infamous black sites, where you have
Home Square
tortured. Let's also bring up the fact that we covered this at Hardlands Media in 2017. 16 black men were exonerated from crimes they did not commit.
Yep.
And they were put in prison under false evidence, false charges by 4 Chicago police officers. And sadly, this is a story that's also all too familiar within our city, and that is corruption, political corruption, establishment corruption. And you have police corruption too. So the thing is, while a lot of these police officers are retiring because they think the city doesn't have their back, remember, there's a lot of examples of the CPD clearly abusing its power to the point to where it is not protecting and serving.
And I want to say to our audience, very honestly, Kit and I chatted before the show, how do we approach this? Because we want to honor this fallen officer who very bravely served and did her job honorably. By the same token, we were worried that people would perhaps respond negatively to us continuing to talk about the fact that despite the fact we're mourning this officer's passing, we can't suddenly toss accountability out the window in all of those examples that Kit just presented to us and shared with us. So
one more example too, the cover up of the shooting and murder of Laquan McDonald.
Yes.
I mean, that's another example too, because the police report and what the video evidence shows, if you ever see the documentary 16 Shots, you'll see that there is a big difference between the police report of that accounting and the video evidence. So there we go. There's that too.
We know that there are good cops in the force in Chicago, but we also know that there is a culture in law enforcement and corruption that unfortunately probably reduces those good cops to like such a minuscule handful. And I've met some good cops. I met one officer who was involved in the Medicare for All March, and I had some conversations with him, and I was really impressed and heartened by the fact that he understands and hears a lot of what the community and what people are are raising voices against, because he acknowledges there are problems within the department. A lot of this has to do with the unions and has a lot to do with the fact that the police union does not want to support that kind of accountability, because there is that weird line where too many officers don't feel that they're there to protect. They feel that they're there only to be to administer justice or be what's the word, to just be listened to or back down from. So
yeah. I think as a final note for this story, condolences to the family.
Yeah.
These two individuals who are now being held without bond need to definitely be held accountable for their actions and what happened. And everyone that's in the city, be safe.
Yeah.
Just
be careful out there. I mean,
this isn't over, unfortunately.
And people in communities too, they shouldn't have to do this, but what you're going to have to take extra care in any situation where you see police officers, because there's going to be a very heightened awareness. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of cops that are on edge. So as much as we hope the police will be focused more on de-escalating, we can't count on that right now. So I guess everybody's going to have to take an extra measure of precaution to de-escalate, or just try to make sure to approach all situations where law enforcement might be, and as peacefully and as innocently as you can present yourselves. So moving on to our next story here. This comes to us from Block Club Chicago. Kelly Bauer, the Delta surge is very much here in Chicago. Top Doc says as hospitalizations and deaths are rising.
Gee, I wonder what could have caused the situation. I don't know. I think maybe you, me, Jose, even a few of us at Hardlands Media, all kind of talked this over, even on our Discord, even on our personal emails to each other. I mean, I think there was an event, top of my tongue. Oh, yeah, Lollapalooza.
An added requirement to enter this year's Lollapalooza Music Festival. Vaccination card, COVID test. Physical proof of vaccination.
I went to office.
I was ready for you, Kit.
Thank you. And you know what? It was just, this all could have been avoided. This was all so stupid. And the mayor signed off for it because, let's face it, Lollapalooza was big bucks, big money. And now, we're going to have to pay the cost for it. And here's the thing, especially, piggybacking off of our earlier story about, what David Earl Williams said about Lori Lightfoot possibly being reelected. I'm 50-50 on that, because there's a lot of things that we can be critical about Mayor Lightfoot, and rightfully so. But this just adds more fuel to the fire. Her administration allowed this event to happen. I understand a lot of people want to return things back to normal. I'm right there with you guys. I'm right there with everyone. I want things to go back to normal. I want us to enjoy life, because life is short. We're only here for a very short time, and then one day we're gone. But this virus has made it very clear that it's not going away. And I'm not going to tell someone how they're going to live their life, whether they want to take a vaccine or not, whatever. But if we're not safe and putting in proper precautions, if we're not safe and taking care of each other, this virus will get out of hand. It wasn't too long ago in 2020 where McCormick Place was considered to be a makeshift emergency hospital. And for those of you who don't live in Chicago, McCormick Place is a wonderful spot. But what a nightmare it would be if that place became an emergency hospital and it actually had to become that fact.
It was rather terrifying to see it when they were setting it up.
Yeah.
So, Kit, lest we forget.
Festival goers this weekend. Mm-hmm. I saw some videos where, people at the gates are basically just waving these folks in. They're just holding up their vaccine cards. Is that enough scrutiny to make sure that these aren't fake or someone else's?
I heard about that, but I was at those gates too. On Thursday, I was at the gates again yesterday. So we've been very clear with the Lala folks. They have to have tight security.
I hope you're right, Kit. We saw that tight security in the previous video.
Yeah, tight security.
Again, here's my card. Hey.
Yeah. That's not how it works. Now look, I'm not going to tell anyone not to have fun. All right, fine. The ink was already dry. I'm not going to say, oh no, don't go to Lollapalooza. But this event could have been canceled and it could have gone to 2022. Something else could have been done. Something far more safer, something not at risk, because now we're going to have to deal with the surge of this Delta variant. Now, again, everyone, just wash your hands, wear a mask. I'm not going to tell you to get the vaccination because, look, you have that choice. But we got to be careful because there are people who are losing their loved ones and family members because of this virus. We are all affected by it, and we need to be careful. Every last one of us.
This is going to sound harsh, Kit, but I am so tired of arguing people who don't want to get vaccinated, and it falls in line with politics. I was speaking with somebody who they still haven't gotten vaccinated, and well, we don't know. There hasn't been enough research, enough time to prove if the vaccine works. And I said, I don't remember people during the polio epidemic worrying about how long it took to research the vaccine when lives were at risk, and they rolled it out and people took it gladly, or chickenpox vaccines or measles vaccines. It's interesting in today's day and age how there's so much resistance to the COVID vaccine because of how it was politicized in the past year. And I really wonder if, had it not been politicized, people would be so resistant to it. I mean, I know you've got an anti-vax community, but given the horrifying videos we saw at the beginning of last year out of Italy, stacks of coffins, and how we were seeing video from McCormick Place where they were preparing it for an emergency trauma center. And if for those outside our city that don't know what McCormick Place looks like, look at any convention center in your city. Huge, huge convention centers. That's what McCormick Place was like. That's what they were prepping and putting hospital beds and separation units in, because that's the amount of people struck with COVID that they were expecting. It was terrifying when you thought about what if this actually comes to pass. So let me get back to the Block Club Chicago article, though, to just share some of the news that came out in regards to the fact Delta is now surging. Officials have warned for weeks about a growing wave of COVID-19 fueled by the more contagious Delta variant. More than 98% of recent cases in Chicago and Illinois and across the United States are thought to stem from that variant. Dr. Allison Arwady, head of the Chicago Department of Public Health, said during a Tuesday live stream. Now, remember, Dr. Arwady also said, well, we're not going to see it because of Lollapalooza. We're going to see it from other places because only 50% of Chicago is vaccinated. But to completely dismiss the thousands of people that were at Delta Palooza, as E. Heller likes to call it, as we're waiting for this incubation period to see if it's going to add to what we're seeing from this report today. That's driven up COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths among Chicagoans. For months, Chicago was only seeing about one person die per day from coronavirus. Now, an average of more than 3 Chicagoans die per day from the virus. Hospitalizations are up too, though those deaths remain far lower than during previous surges, Arwady said. Arwady said that largely because vaccines are now available and are better protecting people. Quote, our cases are continuing to increase, Arwady said, but the good news is our hospitalizations have continued to be relatively low, about 15 new hospitalizations a day. The local surge has not been as bad as in other places like Florida and Texas, where some hospitals have been overwhelmed by COVID-19 patients. And Chicago, which is among the most vaccinated part of Illinois, is faring better than Southern Illinois, where COVID is really surging, Arwady said. The whole state is definitely getting hard, but a lot of the rest of the country is unfortunately getting hit even harder, Arwady said. This wave has had the deepest impact among unvaccinated people, who account for the vast majority of people hospitalized with and dying from COVID-19 in recent months, officials have said. As Delta has spread, slightly more Chicago residents are again getting vaccinated, which is a positive, Arwady said. The vaccines are free and do not require insurance. They have been shown to largely prevent serious illness and death from COVID-19. So you can read the numbers at the Block Club Chicago article, focusing on specifics down in our show notes. But here are some of the specifics. In Illinois, about 6.6 million people of all ages, or 52% of the state's 12.7 million people, have gotten all their COVID-19 vaccine shots, according to the state data. Now, the numbers. 10 Illinoisans were reported dead from COVID-19 since Monday. At least 23,542 people have died from COVID-19 in Illinois, and another 2,492 deaths are probably related to the virus, according to the state. The state reported 2,950 cases since Monday. That brings the total number of confirmed cases in Illinois up to 1,000,000 447,161. Illinois' 7-day positivity rate was at 4.8%. The figure represents the percentage of people testing positive among recent tests. It was at 4.9% Monday. Illinois' 7-day positivity rate, which measures the percentage of tests that were positive, was at 5.7%. It was at 5.6% Monday. As of Monday night, 300 people with COVID-19 were in the ICU and 136 people with COVID-19 were using ventilators in Illinois. 136 people. In Chicago, 7 deaths were reported since Monday. There have been at least 5,535 deaths from COVID-19 in Chicago. The city is seeing an average of more than 3 deaths per day, a 156% increase from the week prior. Look, I can keep going on and on and on with these stats. Again, you can see them at the Block Club Chicago link that's down in our show notes. But this is what happens when you open up too fast because we don't have the proper relief for our businesses or for our unemployed workers that we told to stay home from the federal government for a year. This is what a lot of us predicted, expected, and are now seeing.
This is something that Mayor Lightfoot is going to she's going to have to hold herself accountable for this one.
Yep.
And I know that, we've covered a lot of reports about how, again, Mayor Lightfoot's got thin skin and can't take criticism. Mayor Lightfoot, you approved of this. And when asked, would you do it all over again? You, Mayor Lightfoot, said yes to it. This event put the people of Chicago at risk. Now, look, I'm, again, all for going back to normal. I want us all to enjoy our lives like how we used to before 2020. I'm the first one in line. But this virus is something we haven't dealt with in a very long time. And heaven forbid, if this Delta variant gets worse or there's a much more dangerous mutation because of this, Mayor Lightfoot and politicians like her, both Democrat and Republican, need to hold themselves accountable and must be voted out. And what I have to say is, where's the city council at now for this crisis that's happening? Where's our elected officials, especially our state representatives and state senators who represent Chicago? Where they are right now? Because again, Chicago is a major metropolitan city with about 6 million plus people living in it. I think it's very clear that Lightfoot is the one that gave this the green light. And she said she'd do it all over again. Tell that to the loved ones. Tell that to the family members that have people in the hospital now.
She's got to be a lame duck at re-election. And also, I want to acknowledge in the live chat, .calm, we have moved on from the story of Officer French, but I completely agree with everything you're sharing there. The only reason I'm not sharing your comments is because we're in another story, but you make some really good points. And I got to say, I agree with you. I just didn't want to bring those comments up since we had moved on to another story. But I appreciate what you're sharing in the live chat.
Yeah. Shout out to you, .com. Welcome to the live stream show.
Yeah. We're all hanging on by our fingernails to see who's going to emerge and run against Lightfoot if she actually has the nerve to run again after her failure.
I'll be surprised. I will really be surprised if she wants to run again for re-election.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I could see something happening again where this was a while back in Heartland's Media when we were doing a lot of street reporting. We covered the third mayoral debate, and all the mayoral candidates were there, including Mayor Lightfoot. This was 2019. And Rahm Emanuel did not attend the first two as well as this third debate.
Of course.
And I'm wondering if there are going to be some more mayoral candidates. Will Lightfoot actually do the same thing that Rahm Emanuel did?
Oh yeah, that snooty arrogance. She's too above coming and answering the hard questions that people would ask her as far as all the promises that she made and abandoned, and the horrible decisions that she made during her tenure, allowing the city to reopen maybe too fast in all of these public events. Listen, there's a storm going on outside that's related to climate change with all the heat we're experiencing. And I want to also present what's happening now, what's happening over these next several days, and that people really have got to take care with this incredible heat wave that we are currently suffering from, and now these storms that have followed. Every once in a while, I don't know if our audience can hear, I've got one of those weather alerts in my kitchen that I think I've had 3 tornado warnings or 3 storm warnings alerts coming from my kitchen in the background. But what we need to focus on right now is the resources available to Chicagoans during this heat wave. And the Block Club Chicago staff has provided a good resource, or a good list of resources for people, along with Kelly Bauer from Block Club Chicago. Chicago's cooling centers are open as extreme heat and humidity descend on the city. The city encourages everyone to check on a neighbor and call 311 or go to 311.gov to find out where the nearest cooling center is located. If you do not have working air conditioning in your house, or opening those windows is not enough to get some breeze to give you relief from the heat. The city of Chicago's cooling centers are open Tuesday as the heat index soars into triple digits. The heat will worsen in the late morning and is expected to last all day. The city could feel as warm as 108 degrees, according to Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications. Suburbs to the west and south could feel like 110, according to the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service issued a heat advisory for noon to 7 p.m. in the Chicago area tonight. Severe weather is also predicted for Tuesday evening. And we're going through that right now. And I was just thinking, if by some disaster I lose electricity in my neighborhood, or we go off the air, it's probably because of the storms right now. So if we go off the air, that's what it's from. Maybe Kit will stay on, I'll go out, or he'll go out and I'll stay on. But don't be surprised if that might possibly happen. The city encouraged everyone to check on neighbors, particularly older people, and call 311 or go to 311.gov to find out where the nearest cooling center is located. The cooling centers are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday in Englewood Center, 1140 West 79th Street, Garfield Center, 10 South Kedzie Avenue, Kings Center, 4314 South Cottage Grove. The North Area Center is at 845 West Wilson Avenue. South Chicago Center is at 8650 South Commercial Avenue. Trina Davia Center, 4312 West North Avenue. Cloth face coverings are required inside all cooling centers. Masks will be available on site if someone needs one. Senior centers, libraries, and park district facilities will also be available as cooling centers during their normal operating hours. Watch the Office of Emergency Management and Communication Heat Press Conference online. Again, show notes provide links. People should limit their time outdoors and should never leave children or pets in unattended cars, according to the weather agency. I think that this is kind of restating the obvious, but I'm just going down the list as it's been shared from Block Club Chicago. People should also look out for signs of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. If someone is overcome, people should call 911 and move the sick person into a cool, shaded place, according to the city and National Weather Service. Heat stroke symptoms include body temperature of 103 degrees or higher, hot, red, dry, or damp skin, fast, strong pulse, headache, dizziness, nausea, confusion, passing out, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Heat exhaustion symptoms are heavy sweating, cold, pale, and clammy skin, fast, weak pulse, nausea, or vomiting, muscle cramps, tiredness or weakness, dizziness, headache, passing out, according to the CDC. Now, here's how you're all going to stay safe. Drink fluids, including water. Avoid alcohol, caffeine, and soda, according to the city. Stay inside in an air-conditioned room if possible. Wear lightweight and loose-fitting clothing if possible. Do not leave children or pets in unattended cars, even for a few minutes. If you don't have air conditioning, hey, I've got something to add here. If you don't have air conditioning, but you've got electricity, open your refrigerator. Open your refrigerator or freezer door and maybe sit in front of it. Here are some of their suggestions. Keep your shades drawn and blinds closed, but windows slightly open, according to the city. Keep electric lights off or turned down. Minimize your use of the oven and stove. Take cool baths and showers. At least you're going to have cold water running in your refrigerator that you can sit in front of with the open door if you don't have an air conditioner. Lastly, if you have to go outside, reschedule strenuous outdoor activities for the early morning or evening. Stay out of the sun. Drink fluids, especially water. Rest frequently in shaded or air-conditioned environments. Know the symptoms of heat stroke and heat exhaustion, which we just covered. Anyone overcome should be moved to a cool, shaded location, and people should call 911 for them, according to the weather agency and the city. Most importantly, check on others. Check on your relatives. Check on friends and neighbors over the next few days. The city emphasizes checking especially on older people and especially people with disabilities. who might not have the mobility to get out of wherever they're living. If you can't contact someone, you can request the city do a well-being check on them by calling 311 or submitting a request online through CHI 311 app. Lastly, actually I said lastly, but even most importantly, to the most vulnerable amongst us, our pets. Do not leave pets in unattended cars. I think people should know this, even for a few minutes. Provide your dog with cool water, shade, and monitor them when they're outside according to Cook County Animal and Rabies Control. Short-coated animals and those with white or tan fur can get sunburn, especially on their noses, according to the agency, which is something I did not know. Walk your dog on grass, dirt, or gravel, and avoid asphalt or concrete if possible. Keep your indoor temperature cool and make sure your pet has water at all times. Make sure your windows have screens installed. And if you're going to open them in pets, the signs of heat stroke include fatigue, excessive panting, disorientation, lethargy, discomfort, seizures, and collapse, according to the animal agency. Get help from a veterinarian immediately. If your pet has these symptoms, they provide us unconditional love. Always give them the same extra care back.
Yeah. So right now, outside my window, there is a huge thunderstorm happening. And this is one of the consequences of these major heat waves. And we're going to get one again tomorrow. So drink water, keep your windows open, try and be safe. But it's going to get really rough here in the city these next couple of days. So everyone, it's extreme weather. And I think we should quote E. Heller right now. Again, it's extreme weather right now. And if we're not safe, people are going to get hurt. And so and again, also reports are coming out saying that we're getting 50-plus mile per hour wind. Yeah, it's pretty tough out there. So just be safe, because what are we due for tomorrow? Another hot day, but another thunderstorm in the evening.
Kit, do you remember Batman Begins?
Yes, I do.
There's a storm coming.
Yeah, yep, there is. And then, of course, the same thing, the line was repeated again, the other two movies as well. Chicago. I swear to God, if we start getting like Joker and Batman villains, I'm going to be very upset.
I don't think we will, but Chicago is definitely Gotham. And between the weather, the extreme temperatures, and what we've seen on the streets with the shooting this week, the storm has arrived. And all I can say is that we've just got to be vigilant. We got to be careful. We got to have respect and care for each other, respect and care for our law enforcement. Law enforcement, that goes both ways. I don't know what else to add to our broadcast tonight before I'm worried about the power going out from all of the lightning that I see and thunder that I hear outside. Oh, that was a big one. Kit,
I heard that.
Yeah, you heard that. Do you have anything else to share outside? I know we've got the exciting Jimmy Dore interview coming up.
Yeah, sure. Let's actually end this show on a positive note.
Yeah.
So right now, our editor, shout out to Daniel Lupker and FaZe. Daniel was the cameraman. He was getting the filming. He was doing the filming and the audio recording. And now FaZe, he is now editing these video clips of my interview with Chicago's very own Jimmy Dore. It was an outstanding interview. I'm not going to give away too much, but obviously I wanted to talk a little bit more about Jimmy.
Whoa!
That was a big one.
That was.
All right, there we go. Hey, we're live, folks. I wanted to get to know Jimmy Dore a little bit better. I wanted to have a conversation that would be different than previous interviews that we saw on other channels. I know all these other channels, shout out to them. They did a fantastic job interviewing Jimmy Dore. I just wanted to do something a little different. And we got him cut up in different segments. And then the full interview will be available, I think, sometime later on. But we're going to be sending them out in clips, and it'll be all available on the Heartlands Media YouTube channel. I really enjoyed having a sit-down conversation with Jimmy, and I look forward to more in the future. Talia Hall was a wonderful time. The food was really exceptional. I mean, I've been to Talia Hall 4 different occasions, 2 times to see Jimmy Dore's show, and this time around, this 5th time there, the food was just delicious. It was incredible. Shout out to the bartender as well, who was by herself, who was serving us all the drinks. I had my glass of Templeton Rye, of course, and it was good. It was all good all around.
That was my first time at Talia Hall, and what a great venue. I want to look for other events that are happening there just by virtue of the atmosphere and the ambiance there. It's incredible.
They actually have a website, TaliaHall.com. Yeah, I recommend that place. I've been there First time I was ever there was, I think, 2015, maybe 2014. There was a big event. It was like a food event, and they were serving all kinds of different, like, not local foods, but more of like startup businesses. And the one that really stood out was the lobster sandwich location. That was just really good. So,
well, I know it's too soon to predict, but I can't wait or expect, but I can't wait till Jimmy comes back. It was a great show, and
probably in the summer.
So proud that he hails from the South Side.
He's one of us.
He's one of us. I think
Southsiders. There
one
you
of
go.
One of the many reasons we can all identify with him. Plus the fact that he, as Nina Turner said, he says the things the rest of us can't say.
And Jimmy Dore is the best. And I have to say, I really am happy how that interview turned out, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's one of my best works. So I'm looking forward to it being shared with the public, and it'll be available on the Heartlands Media YouTube channel.
Very good. Now, I also want to remind people, we've got this banner going down underneath us, and there's still time to sign the Medicare for All petition at medicareforall.org. That's why I keep that up there. Go to m4m4all.org to sign the petition for Medicare for All. I'm hoping I'm going to be getting in touch with Joy Bunton soon to have her back on the show to speak about other developments that have happened since the Medicare for All march from a couple weeks ago. I know that you had Junaid Ahmed on your show, who is a candidate running for office, who is in support of Medicare for All. It was an interesting interview over on Heartlands Media. So if you haven't yet, everybody, go to m4m4all.org, sign that petition. I don't know who's coming on yet Friday. Maybe it'll be the Medicare for All update, maybe not, but we'll post information as soon as I know who our guest is going to be. I would also encourage people to please, if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch last Friday's interview with Melissa Hernandez.
Great work.
Incredible, inspirational woman. And we are also helping promote her GoFundMe to get showers for the homeless community that she and her organization that she's working for are serving. I guess with all that said, I hope everybody stays safe, stays cool. Always remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Stay safe, Chicago. Kit, thanks for joining me tonight. And peace.
Take care, everyone.